Now, we've been hearing this word triggers, 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 until we think it's a law of life, until we imagine there is some authority out there stalking our peace and pressing a button in here. Now mark this well, because this is going to be a very, very important point in your life if you catch it. A trigger is not an external power attacking you. A trigger is a suggestion arriving in consciousness, often with a feeling of inevitability, often with a surge, a rush, a pressure. But it is suggestion nonetheless. And suggestion has no law. Now, how do I dare speak with such certainty? Because in the presence of one infinite being, one infinite presence, there can be no second power legislating your experience. Therefore, anything that arrives as compulsion, as I must react, as I can't help it, is not law. It is suggestion appearing as law. Do you see that? The force of it is not proof of truth. The intensity of it is not the presence of a second cause. It is only the drama of suggestion. And suggestion has no cause in God, no substance in spirit, no authority upon you unless you accept it. Don't ever misunderstand what I'm saying. I am not denying anyone's experience of intensity. We have all known the clutch in the chest, the heat in the face, the racing thoughts. We do not mock it. We do not shame it. We do not pretend it isn't there. But we deny that its presence proves an outside power has entered the sanctuary of being. We deny it authority. We deny it law. We deny it truth. Because suggestion cannot be law in the presence of the One. Do you see that? Now, here comes that terrible, terrible word. But it feels so real. Yes, of course it does. That is the nature of suggestion. It does not tiptoe in wearing a clown suit. It comes draped in inevitability. It says, "This is you," and it says it with volume. And still, it is only suggestion. Seeming is not being. A picture is not a presence. A gust of wind on the surface of the lake does not alter the depth of the waters. You are not the gust. You are not the surface. All right. If we let this sink in, even for a moment, we begin to step out of the hypnosis of two powers. Me and my trigger. Me and that person. Me and that headline. There is not God and you. There is God expressed as you. And in that realization, anything unlike the authority of God must take its proper place, as appearance, as claim, as hypnotic pressure, without law. Therefore, when a trigger presents itself, recognize it for what it is. Name it suggestion. Feel whatever human sensation is there without granting it jurisdiction. Stand still a moment inside and say, "This has no law upon me." Then be quiet. Abide. Let the One be one. The class begins here. Suggestion has no law. Hold that. Return to that. Test it in the instant it seems otherwise. And you will find that the more you refuse to crown suggestion as law, the less audience it will find in you. Do you see that? Now, let us uncover the quiet superstition beneath all this modern talk. It is the superstition of two powers. One power called me, my history, my nervous system, my precious sensitivities. And one power called that out there, that person, that sound, that image, that memory, able to invade, overwhelm, and command me. Now, mark this well, because this is the hinge on which bondage swings. The moment we accept two powers, we install a private legislature within ourselves. We write a statute called must. When X happens, I must feel Y. When that tone of voice hits the ear, the heart must race. When that headline appears, I must spiral. That must is not a law of God. It is a law we draft in the human mind, and then we enforce it upon ourselves. Do you see that? All right. This is where we confuse sensation with sovereignty. Sensation may occur: tingle, heat, tremor, tears. Let them pass across the field. Acknowledge them humanly, but do not mistake their movement for a decree. A sound is a sound. A pulse is a pulse. A picture is a picture. None of these, of themselves, carry authority to interpret your life or determine your identity. The minute we say, "Because my body registered, therefore I am defined," we have knelt before a second power and called it Lord. Don't ever misunderstand what I am saying. We are not asked to pretend there is no sensation. We are asked not to crown sensation as ruler, interpreter, or prophet. Sovereignty belongs to the one presence alone. Now, in a one-power universe, where would an opposing force reside? Where would it find a foothold to invade being? There is not God and you. There is God expressed as you. Therefore, invasion can only appear as invasion. It can only register as a picture, a push, a rush, something that seems to cross a boundary that, in truth, does not exist. It is like standing at the rails and swearing they meet. The eyes insist. The habit insists. The must insists. And yet, when you walk it, there is no meeting. The invasion never occurred. An appearance occurred. The sting, then, is not in the event and not in the body. The sting is in the hidden agreement with two powers. Break the agreement, and the sting dissolves into what it always was: suggestion without law. And please notice the direction this sends us. We are not going to wrestle the trigger, argue with it, anesthetize it, or hire it as our guide. We are going to unmask it. We are going to recognize, name, and refuse its claim to legislation over our being. Then we abide, quiet, unhurried, without drama, until the picture fades for lack of an audience. Do you see that? That is diagnosis, and it is already the beginning of treatment. Now let us set the foundation stone, and mark this well, because it must carry you through every appearance that ever presents itself. If God is infinite, if truth is without circumference, if being is all, where would an opposite find room to stand? Where would there be a second law, a second mind, a counter-creation? There is not God and something. There is God, is, am, as. Therefore, anything that would parade itself as a rival, any must, any coercion, any compulsion, cannot be substance. It can be only appearance. Do you see that? All right. Take a walk with me to the rails at the edge of town. Stand there and look. The tracks meet. They meet. The eye swears to it. The feeling insists. There's the pinch point. That's where the iron kisses. Now begin to walk. 5 steps, 50, 500. The meeting recedes. It never was. The sensation of certainty was not proof of a fact. It was proof only of an angle of seeing. Now stand on the beach. The ocean ends at the horizon. It is an edge, a drop, a rim. Sail as long as you like. No edge. And there on the valley floor, look up. The sky sits on the mountain. It is a blue lid resting on a green bowl. Climb. Ascent does the teaching. The sky moves, the lid lifts. The joining was never a joining. Do you see that? Each time the appearance claimed law. Each time, approach dissolved the statute into air. Now bring this straight home to where you live. A trigger is the rail tracks that meet in the distance of consciousness. It is the horizon ledge of safety. It is the blue lid of the sky pressing on your ridge. The body quivers, the memory surges, and the picture shouts, "Here is your destiny. Here is your definition." But approach it with presence. Do not run from it. Do not bow to it. But come near in the light of the One. And you find there is no meeting point, no edge, no lid. There is sensation, yes. There is a picture, yes. But law? Cause? Authority to govern identity? None. Suggestion has no law. Don't ever misunderstand what I'm saying. We do not say there is no picture. We do not slap a pious smile on pain. We say, the picture appears. It is not a presence with statute power. The sound is heard. It is not a sovereign. The pulse registers. It is not a decree. The moment you accept that distinction, you move from wrestling with a thing to looking through a mist. A picture is met by vision, not by violence. A mirage is met by walking, not by weapons. Therefore, in the presence of the One, we refuse the second. We refuse to confer law on the picture. We deny it cause because all cause is God. We deny it right because all right is in being. And when the mind cries, "But it feels like iron touching iron," we answer, yes, as the rails, as the horizon, as the sky on the mountain. I will walk. I will approach. I will abide. Then, without warfare, without drama, the appearance yields to what is. And what is? The One being one. As is. Am. Do you see that? Now don't ever misunderstand what I'm saying. Because if you miss this, you will turn a liberating principle into a whip. This is not pretend you're fine. This is not put on a brave face. Nor is it quote a truth to crush a feeling. We are not engaged in denial. We are engaged in discernment. Now mark this well, because it will keep you safe. To honor a sensation, to acknowledge a memory, to let the tears rise and the breath shorten for a moment, is not to grant those movements authority to define you now. You may let the weather pass across the field without calling it government. Do you see that? All right, here comes that terrible, terrible word. But my trauma, but my body, but what happened was real. Yes, in the calendar of human experience there were events. They left imprints on the nervous system. They wrote stories in the mind. They set off alarms that ring when certain bells are struck. We are not mocking that. We are not minimizing that. We are acknowledging it as history. But the trigger is not the event. The trigger is the present suggestion that you are still under that power now. That is the distinction that opens the gate. The memory may arise, the pulse may quicken, but the must that tries to fasten itself upon you, I must spiral, I must collapse, I must obey. That must is not a law. It is a suggestion appearing as law. Recognize the difference, and you are already free to refuse jurisdiction. Don't ever misunderstand. Refusal is not repression. This is not the cold hand over a frightened child's mouth. This is the warm arm around the child, with the steady voice of authority that says, I hear you. You are safe. And this voice at the door does not rule this house. Compassionate authority. Let the sensation crest and fall. Let the image float through. And at the same time, do not sign the contract that reads, "This rules me." You may feel, fully and cleanly, without enthroning the feeling. You may witness, quietly and steadily, and in that very witnessing, you will discover the secret. The moment you can witness it, you are already not it. The whirlwind cannot observe itself. The presence observes. Do you see that? Please do not use truth as a bludgeon. Do not throw scriptures at your heart. Do not shame the tremor. Do not scold the breath. A class is a sacred, sacred undertaking. It is not a courtroom where you prosecute your humanity. It is a sanctuary where you separate what is felt from what is true. What is felt may be storm. What is true is the depth of the sea. What is felt may be the rails that meet. What is true is the walk that shows they do not. Therefore, we honor the storm, and we do not crown it king. We acknowledge the picture, and we decline to call it a presence with law. Now, hold this gently but firmly. Events may belong to yesterday. Identity belongs to being. There is not God and you in rivalry with the past. There is God expressed as you now. As, is, am. In that light, the present suggestion loses its costume. It appears, it asks for your signature, and you, compassionate, unhurried, unafraid, decline. You breathe, you abide. You let the one be one, and you let sensation be sensation. And in that practice, the dignity of your being is preserved without pretending, without bypassing, and without ever granting a picture the authority to define you now. Do you see that? Now we come to identity. And mark this well, because if you catch it, the whole pattern of compulsion loosens. There is not you and a reaction. There is not God and you fighting the reaction. There is God expressed as you, and therefore your true consciousness is not a battlefield with warring parties. Being is. Being as you. As, is, am. Do you see that? The very moment you think of yourself as a little person with a private center, surrounded by powers that can enter and take over, you have stepped out of home and into a dream. The dream writes a name tag. I am anxious. I am unsafe. I am broken. Those are not identities. Those are suggestions trying to steal the sacred words, I am. Don't ever misunderstand. The misuse of I am is the secret corridor through which suggestion tries to pass itself off as selfhood. All right, let us take back the name. You are not the spasm. You are not the swirl. You are not the picture. You are the awareness in which the spasm is noticed, the swirl observed, the picture seen. Therefore you can say, cleanly and without bravado, I am not my reaction. I am awareness of it. I am not fear. I am life. I am not panic. I am presence. And listen to the cadence. No law, no cause, no power is in the reaction. Law is in God. Cause is in God. Power is in God, expressed as you. There is not glass and a tumbler. There is glass formed as a tumbler. If the form is nicked, the glass substance remains itself. There is not electricity and a lamp. There is electricity appearing as light through the lamp. If the bulb flickers, electricity has not caught a disease. Do you see that? The nervous system may flicker. Being does not. Now here comes that terrible, terrible word. But I have a diagnosis. But the tests. But my history. Yes, in the human ledger there are line items. and the instrument bears the marks of use. We are not scorning that. We are refusing to turn the instrument into the musician. The labels describe weather patterns of the body-mind. They do not confer an identity to your I am. The moment you accept I am anxious as Holy Writ, you have enthroned a suggestion and called it self. Take the crown back, gently, firmly, today. Make it practical. In the very instant a trigger surges, let that be the bell of remembrance, not the trumpet of exile. Do not say, I am spiraling. Say, I am home in thee. Not a plea, a fact. I am home in thee, now. Let the breath be fast or slow. Let the heart thud or settle. But hold to identity. I am presence. I am awareness. I am life. Then be still a moment. Abide. In that abiding, the suggestion loses the mask of me and stands revealed as a picture without law. This is not affirmed once and filed away. Identity is returned to again and again and again until the suggestion finds no audience. Every time the mind rushes to finish the sentence, I am, with a diagnosis, you quietly finish it with being. I am as God is. I am because God is. What God is, I am. As, is, am. Day by day, hour by hour, in the grocery line, at the red light, in the heat of the boardroom, you practice this correction, not straining, not arguing, but remembering. And if you miss it and you tumble, do not put yourself out of the class. Stand up within and say, I know who I am, and come home again. Persist, and you will find the nervous system becomes a faithful instrument in the hands of presence, not a tyrant in the house. Do you see that? Now, we must have our instant treatment. And mark this well, because you will use it in the grocery store, in the office, in the night watches. You never begin with the picture. You begin with presence. You never start your treatment with the trigger's story. You start with God. God is. Presence is. The One is being itself as, is, am. Therefore, I rest a breath. I am home in thee. And only then do I meet the appearance. Do you see that? Step 1. Recognition. In the very first surge, before the mind drafts its narrative, quietly say within, this is suggestion. Not my enemy, not my fate, not a second power. A suggestion arriving in consciousness, without law, without cause, without authority unless I grant it. Naming it rightly breaks the spell of inevitability. Do you see that? Step 2. Disidentification. Now set the picture where it belongs. It is a picture in thought. It is not myself, not my future, not my guidance system. I am not inside the swirl. The swirl is noticed within awareness. I am not the alarm. I am life witnessing the bell. Therefore, I refuse to let the sacred words, I am, be fastened to a passing image. I am as God is. I am because God is. What God is, I am. Step 3. Denial of law. This is not denial of sensation. This is denial of jurisdiction. No law, no mandate, no must. No cause in history, no cause in heredity, no cause in another's voice. No power to define, no power to decree, no power to compel. Hear the rhythm. No law, no cause, no power. Sensation may move. Statute does not exist. Suggestion has no law. Repeat it as often as the picture shouts until its claim to legislation is laughed out of court. Now, do you see why fighting strengthens it? Fighting is a confession. Fighting admits a rival. Fighting says, "You have power, and I will wrestle you for it." We do not grant it that dignity. We recognize, we disidentify, we deny its law. And then we do the most radical thing of all. Step 4. Abiding. We rest. Communion, not combat. Let me sit here and abide in thy presence. No pleading, no bargaining, no mental arm wrestling. We let the wave pass while we remain established. Be still, be quiet. Let the one be one. In that abiding, the picture fades for lack of an audience. The suggestion dissolves because it cannot find belief to animate it. Do you see that? Make it simple and keep it near. In aisle 3, a voice snaps. The chest tightens. Immediately, God is, presence is, as is, am. Then, this is suggestion. Then, it is a picture in thought. It is not I. Then, no law, no cause, no power. Then, abide. 1 breath, 2 breaths, resting in the isness of God as you. The head may buzz, the heart may thud. Let them. You are not seeking to fix a condition. You are witnessing the absence of its law. Practice this precisely, gently, repeatedly, and you will discover that the instant treatment becomes your native posture, and the trigger cannot find a home where no second power is believed. Do you see that? Now here comes that terrible, terrible word. But if I don't react, I'll be harmed. But this anxiety is protecting me. But this vigilance is wisdom. Now mark this well, because if you catch it, a chain drops from the mind. The but is the mind's demand that suggestion be treated as protective law. It says, "Grant me jurisdiction, and I'll keep you safe." It is a bargain. Sacrifice peace, and I will sell you the feeling of control. Do you see that? All right. What is the commodity it offers? It offers tension and calls it intelligence. It offers speed and calls it readiness. It offers suspicion and calls it wisdom. Hypervigilance is paraded as safety. The mind says, if I stop scanning, something will slip through. It does not notice that the scanning itself slips you out of presence. Don't ever misunderstand what I am saying. Prudence is not hysteria. Love is not naivete. But safety, in the spiritual sense, is presence. Guidance is presence, quiet, immediate, intelligent. It is a whisper that moves the feet at the right second. It is not the repetitive drumbeat that predicts, rehearses, projects. Suggestion is loud, second-hand, and repetitive. Guidance is quiet, first-hand, and fresh. Do you see the difference? Now test it. We must have a test, because the mind cries, "Prove it, and then I'll rest." Here is your test. Does this movement enlarge life or shrink it? Does it bring clarity or compulsion? After it speaks, are you calmer, clearer, able to see the next clean step? Or are you tighter, smaller, and condemned to act because you must? Guidance clarifies. Compulsion clouds. Presence opens, suggestion closes. If the impulse is clean, you can obey it without argument. If it is hypnotic, you cannot rest until you obey. One is light, the other is pressure. Do you see that? The but stands at the gate like a guard with a false badge. It flashes fear and demands your papers. It says, "Show me proof you won't be hurt, and then I'll let you pass." Now listen closely. The proof it asks for does not exist in advance of abiding. The proof is the fruit of abiding, not the price of entry. If you stop to argue, you have already acknowledged its badge. You have already granted law to suggestion. Our way is different. Recognize the guard as suggestion. Deny its jurisdiction. No law, no cause, no power, and pass quietly. We do not fight the guard. We do not bribe it. We do not preach to it. We walk in our own house. Do you see that? Don't ever misunderstand. This is not a permission slip to ignore a bus in the street. Presence may say, "Step back," and you will find your body step back before a syllable forms. That is wisdom without worry. That is safety without strain. The but is not that. The but is yesterday's movie running in today's theater, insisting that you pay for admission with your peace. Therefore, when the but rises, "But if I don't react," answer it once, not with quarrel, but with clarity. This is suggestion claiming to be my law. It isn't. Then apply the test. Does this shrink or enlarge? Does it cloud or clarify? If it clouds, let it pass. If it clarifies, obey and remain still. And then abide. One presence, one power, one life. In that abiding, the mind's demand for proof dissolves, because the only proof that satisfies is the felt authority of the one being one, as, is, am. Once you see the but as a guard without a badge, you will stop arguing at the gate and you will enter. And in entering, you discover what was true all along. Safety is not a posture of fear. Safety is presence realized. Do you see that? Now, having dismissed the guard with the false badge, we must settle the matter of prayer, because if you miss this, you will spend the rest of your days bargaining with shadows. Don't ever misunderstand what I'm saying. Pleading with God to remove a trigger is the subtle confession that the trigger has power. It keeps your attention riveted to the picture and crowns it as law while you beg a higher law to overrule it. That is two-power religion dressed up in spiritual words. Do you see that? All right. Prayer, in our way, is not petition, but communion. We do not try to persuade the infinite to do what the infinite has forgotten. God is not withholding anything, and therefore God can't give you anything. God is. God just is. God is ising all the time. Prayer is our consenting to that isness, resting in it, abiding in it, until the suggestion runs out of breath. You are not bargaining for a different nervous system. You are resting in the already present wholeness that constitutes your being. Father, reveal thyself as the only presence here. Let me abide in thy peace. Not as magic words, but as the posture of consciousness that says, I will not worship the picture. I will rest in presence. Do you see that? Now mark this well, because it is the paradox that offends the bargaining mind. When you stop trying to change the picture changes. Why? Because you have withdrawn the only substance it ever had, your belief. A mirage does not need wind to vanish. It needs only approach in the light. So with triggers. The pressure loses its scaffolding when you abide. You did not fix a condition. You ceased to feed it. You took the plug out of the projector, and the film that seemed to demand your lines goes dark. And then what moves? Presence moves, quietly, intelligently, without fuss or trumpet. Do you see that? Don't ever misunderstand. Communion is not passivity. It is the highest activity of awareness. Petition strains, communion yields. Petition says, if you do this, I'll be safe. Communion says, being is safety realized. And in that realization, wisdom is immediate. If a step is needed, you will find it taken almost before a thought forms. If silence is wisdom, silence arrives. No pleading, no bargaining, no mental theatrics. Just the one being one. As is, am. Now, how do we practice? Not as a single dramatic moment, but as an atmosphere cultivated. 2 minutes in the morning, 3 at noon, again at night, many short rests in presence. Sit, close the mental shopfront, and say, softly and truly, Father, reveal thyself as the only presence here. Let me abide in thy peace. Then be still. If a picture intrudes, do not wrestle. Recognize it as suggestion, deny its law without heat, and return to resting. This is how the soil of consciousness is tilled so that suggestion finds no root. Day by day, the center of gravity shifts from the story to the silence, from the badge at the gate to the home within. Persist gently, faithfully, and you will discover that prayer has ceased to be asking and has become awareness. And in that awareness, the very thing you thought you must chase is found already present. Peace, not purchased, not performed, but realized. Do you see that? Now we come to the discipline, and mark this well because it will decide your harvest. Freedom is not won by a single luminous moment and then a holiday. It is established by faithful, steady, gentle persistence until suggestion finds no audience. A class is a sacred, sacred, sacred undertaking. Your life is the altar. If you want freedom, you must practice, not once, not when you feel inspired, but consistently. Do you see that? All right. Let us set a simple weekly rhythm. Each morning, before the world speaks, 2 or 3 minutes. Father, reveal thyself as the only presence here. I am home in thee. Then be still. Don't load the day with vows. Establish the day in presence. At midday, a reset. 1 minute, eyes open if you must. God is, as, is, am. Recognize any agitation as suggestion. Deny its law, no cause, no power, and return to the task. In the evening, we review. Not as a prosecutor, as a practitioner. Lay the day before you. Where did the picture seem strong? Where did the must demand obedience? Reclassify each incident. That was a picture in thought, not a presence with law. Remove its badge, refuse its statute, and rest a moment in communion until the day's scenes are rinsed of authority. Do you see that? Now, after-action treatment. If you were swept up, voice raised, heart galloping, old movie playing, do not condemn yourself. That is another suggestion asking to be crowned. Instead, treat it afterward. Take the very memory that stung, hold it in the light of presence, and gently apply the truth. This, too, is a suggestion appearing in consciousness without law. I am not inside it. I am awareness witnessing it. No law, No cause, no power. Abide a moment. Repeat tomorrow night if the charge remains, and the next, until the memory loses its hypnotic pull. This is how we drain the past of jurisdiction. Don't ever misunderstand. You are not hiding your head. You are removing a crown from a phantom. Beware spiritual laziness. Waiting for life to calm before you practice is like waiting for darkness to teach you light. Practice is the lamp you carry into the night. If you postpone it for a quiet season, you will discover that the season never arrives. Begin now, in weather, and you will find that weather becomes your teacher rather than your tyrant. Do you see that? We must have markers, because the mind asks, how will I know? You will know by fruit. Recovery time shortens. What took hours takes minutes, then breaths. Compulsion loosens. The must becomes may, then silence. Witnessing increases. You notice the wave instead of riding it blindly. Spaciousness grows. You can choose. You can pause. You can abide. These are the proofs of dehypnosis. Not that no picture ever appears, but that pictures no longer legislate. Suggestion speaks and finds an empty auditorium. It fails to cast you because the sacred words, I am, are no longer on loan. Therefore, accept your responsibility and go to work on this case, your own consciousness, every single day of the week. Morning establishing, midday resetting, evening reviewing. After action treatments is needed. One longer sitting sometime in the week. 15 quiet minutes to let the roots go deep. Persist kindly. Persist steadily. Persist until the suggestion, meeting no belief, has nothing to animate it. And then what remains? Presence remains, being itself as, is, am. Do you see that? Now we must widen the lens. And mark this well, because the same mechanism that whispers in your private night shouts from the public square at noon. Society has discovered that suggestion spreads fastest on the wings of emotion. So we have headlines sharpened to a point, clips cut to a jolt, comment wars staged like gladiator games. Why? Because outrage monetizes attention, and attention, carried by repeated images plus moral urgency, induces trance. The body tightens, the breath shortens, and the viewer feels attacked, but is not being attacked. The viewer is being conditioned. Do you see that? All right, let us trace the mechanism. Picture after picture, the same angle, the same rhythm, the same language that says, this is the enemy, this is the danger, this is the tribe. The drumbeat is repetition, the cloak is righteousness, the effect is hypnosis. The rails seem to meet at the far end of the feed. The horizon appears as an edge you must rush to defend. The sky of threat sits like a lid upon your town. The feeling of emergency becomes its own proof. But, as with the rails, approach with presence and the meeting point recedes. As with the horizon, sail a little and the edge vanishes. As with the sky on the mountain, climb with discernment and the lid lifts. The sting was borrowed from our belief in two powers. Do you see that? Don't ever misunderstand what I am saying. We do not say there is no injustice, no sorrow, no need for wise action. We say, the cultural trigger is the present suggestion that frenzy is law, that hatred is intelligence, that division is safety. That is the spell. That is what we refuse. We treat the collective claim exactly as we treat the personal, without apathy and without frenzy. Recognition. This is suggestion riding a headline. Disidentification. It is a picture in thought, not a presence with authority. Denial of law. No law, no cause, no power in the drumbeat. And then, abiding. Father, reveal thyself as the only presence here. Not once, not to feel noble, but as a steady posture. Do you see that? Now here comes that terrible, terrible word. But if we don't get angry, nothing changes. But if we don't pick a side, we're complicit. Mark this well. Frenzy is not love, and panic is not power. Guidance is presence. Wisdom is presence. The action born of communion is clean, timely, unforced. It may write a letter, stand in a doorway, comfort a neighbor, vote with clarity, give resources, speak a firm no, without hatred, without inner collapse, without the hangover of self-righteousness. Compulsion clouds. Presence clarifies. One produces more noise, the other produces fruit. Test it and see. We must have street practice. When a clip spikes your pulse, pause one breath. God is. Presence is. As is. Am. Silently, this is suggestion seeking to legislate me into fear or rage. No law, no cause, no power. Then affirm, one presence, one life, one mind, being all. Refuse two power narratives, not us and them, but God as all, appearing in degrees of awakening. Now abide a moment. If an intelligent step arises, take it quietly. If silence is wisdom, keep silence. Either way, you will move as peace, not as panic. Do you see that? This is not withdrawal from the world. This is entering the world unhypnotized. It is walking into the market, the meeting, the feed, as one who has no badge to flash and no badge to fear. It is the end of being conscripted by the outrage economy. You become, by practice, a non-reactive center from which wise love acts. And as more of us consent to one presence, one power, one life, the collective spell thins, not because we won an argument, but because suggestion, meeting no belief, has nothing to animate it. Then the world you touch, your home, your street, your share of the culture, begins to feel the difference. Presence remains, being itself as is, am. Do you see that? Now mark this well, because this is the seal upon the whole class. A trigger is suggestion. Suggestion has no law, and you can witness and abide. That is the triad you take with you: appearance, lawlessness, communion. Rails that seem to meet, a horizon that seems an edge, a sky that seems a lid. Appearances only. They claim spectacle, they borrow sensation, but they do not possess statute. Do you see that? All right. Here is the assurance on which you may rest your head tonight. The very moment you recognize suggestion as suggestion, you are already free in that instant. Why? Because the you that sees is not inside the picture. The witness is not the wave. The witness is the ocean. The awareness that says, "This is suggestion," stands untouched, uninjured, unimpressed. The picture may rattle the pane, but the house stands. The nervous system may flicker, but being does not. Do you see that? Therefore, do not fear the next trigger. Welcome it as the bell that calls you back to presence. Let it be your chapel bell, not your fire alarm. When it rings, you know your practice. You do not scramble to patch the ceiling. You remember the foundation. One presence, one power, one life. God is, as, is, am. You stand at your door and you know the uniform. The guard with the false badge has returned. You smile, not in contempt, but in mastery, and you pass into your own house. Make the closing practice simple, portable, exact. When the picture rises, say, quietly, cleanly, truly, "This is not power. This is not law. This is not my identity." Then rest. Not a wrestle, a rest. Let the words set the posture, and then let the words fall away. Abide. Father, reveal thyself as the only presence here. Be still, 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3. If a step is given, it will be clean. If silence is wisdom, it will be sweet. You are not trying to end a storm. You are realizing the sky. Don't ever misunderstand. We are not graduating from appearances so that none will ever show. We are graduating from granting them jurisdiction. Suggestion will knock, but it will not legislate. Sensation may pass through, but it will not define. History may speak, but it will not name you. The sacred words, "I am," are safe at home. And as this posture ripens, personally in your house, publicly in your street, you will look back and see the miracle that leaves no scorch marks. You were never truly under attack. Only a picture claimed authority and found less and less to feed it. Now, let us end as we must always end. In silence, in communion, not petition. Close the mental shopfront. One presence, one power, one life. God is, as, is, am. Be still and know. Taste the peace that does not wait for conditions. Rest and let the one be one. And from this quiet, go your way unhypnotized, ready, willing, joyful, seeing through, standing firm, moving gently. Do you see